Hello there, guys. If my name's Jimmy Williams, you guys have seen me around on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and soon to be on LinkedIn. Most of you know me as the apostle in the marketplace. Some of you know me as Jimmy, the real estate investor, entrepreneur, coach. And my wife and I, we have a pretty big following on Facebook. But today, this show is not going to be called Revitalizing the Entrepreneur Spirit. I've been led in my spirit to really talk a little bit more about race, how it pertains to what's going on in our nation. And I have an absolute legend with me today, because sometimes you have to stop what you're doing. So I'm going to ask all of you, whatever you're doing, please stop, sit down, grab a pen and a piece of paper, whether you're white or black. If you want to understand what race is all about and where it came from, I have someone who did the studying on this thing. She's been doing this since the civil rights movement. And she has not shortchanged any community. I mean, whether you're black or white, you can learn from this woman. And I look up to her, I respect her. I've been watching her for maybe 3 years now. I actually emailed her 3 years ago, and I said, I'm thinking about writing a book, but I'd like to get your feedback on the book, and I would like you to be a part of that. And she emailed me back. She respectfully emailed me back, and I was like, wow, this person travels all over the world and has been teaching and emailed me back. So that let me know that, her heart is pure, her motives are pure. And so looking up to someone like that, it's very hard to get them because they're very busy. So we will respect her time. And I want all of you to please have an open mind. If you were, I'm going to use the word ignorant. When I say that word, I mean that from a pure standpoint, some of you you're just unlearned. You don't know any better. I'm going to challenge you to sit down and open your mind. Okay. Then you have that group that's willfully ignorant. They don't want to hear anything. I'm not talking to you guys, but those of you who really want more education on where racism, white supremacy, and all these things came from. This person that's talking about it today has faced many death threats and has virtually just, decided that she's going to stand with black people and stand for what's right. I don't think she just stands for black people. She stands for what's right. But particularly in this scenario, with the climate that's going on in the U.S. today, she can kind of give us some information and shed some light as to where it came from and why it's that way. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce her, and I'm going to first of all ask, Jane, can you hear me and see me well?
I can see you and I can hear you.
Fantastic. And you look, man, your screen looks way better than mine. Wow, that's perfect. Whatever you guys did, that's perfect. So with that being said, let me just talk a little bit about her. I'm going to have her come back. She's going to share a story, and then we're going to ask some very difficult questions. Again, white people, black people, brown people, people from all over the world, whoever you are, sit down, take a few minutes, and watch what we're going to be talking about. You're going to want to hear this. Her name is Jane Elliot, and I'm not making this up, but if you go Google her, you'll see everything. She's on Wikipedia. I'm not going to make this up. I'm going to read it directly from Wikipedia so you can see for yourself. Jane is an American school teacher. She's a true anti-racist or racism activist. Okay, true anti-racism activist, and she's an educator. She's personally done work with Killer Mike, T.I., they both live, you guys know the famous rappers T.I. and Killer Mike. They both live here in Atlanta, Georgia, and they have an agenda to help black people, and she's been a part of that. She was on the Oprah Winfrey show. She's done work with Jada, Pinkett-Smith, and Roland Martin. If you look at these pictures, these are actual pictures that I went and I did my due diligence to study this person to see exactly what she's all about. And Jane is the real deal. She suffered a lot for standing up for us as a people and as a whole. And, when we find people like that, our white brothers and sisters that stand with us, we've got to stand with them. Yeah, so I want you to go ahead and just start with your life story about how you grew up and all those things, and just tell us a little bit about you and how you don't
have time for my life story. I'm 86 years old, for heaven's sake.
We'll jump to the part.
But let's just hit the cogent part. Number one.
Okay.
My father used to say to us, never judge a book by its cover. And he also used to say, if you think you're smarter than he is, prove it. Mm-hmm. And he used to say, a man's judged by the company he keeps, and the best of company is none too good. So we were careful about the people we took home to meet our parents. We were careful about the people we played with. We were careful about the people we dated. We were very careful, period. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
When I got married to a man from central Iowa and found out what really, truly love is all about. Okay. And he was from Boone, and he managed stores for National Tea Company. They moved him from Boone to Waterloo, Iowa, which at that time was called Little Chicago because of the large black population. The
Okay.
store that Daryl managed in Waterloo was in the black section. He
Okay.
was allowed to have one black employee. And
Wow.
just during the civil rights movement, at the beginning of the civil rights movement, Jim Jackson, his one black employee, quit to go to college. And Daryl said, what am I going to do for a black employee? And Jim Jackson said, I don't know, but I'm going to college. So he went to college, and Daryl was without a black employee in the black section in Waterloo, Iowa.
Wow.
So he got a call. He got a call from the head of the NAACP, a black woman,
Okay.
and she said, Daryl, I'm going to picket your store. He said, why are you going to picket my store? She said, you don't have a black employee. He said, send me a black employee. I'll be glad to hire him. He said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to picket your store.
Wow.
So my husband's store was the first store picketed in Waterloo, Iowa. And after that happened, they moved the store, the company that owned the store, moved the store to the west side of town, out of the black section.
Really?
To punish those black people for what they did. Well,
Wow.
we knew that there was going to be a race riot in Waterloo. So we quickly left Waterloo and moved back to Iowa so that my children could know their grandparents. Once we got back to Iowa, we came to Riceville. We were like foreigners because we'd lived in Waterloo. That made us strange, number one. My sister quit teaching, so I went and applied for her job because we needed some money. My husband had a job, but we had 4 children by then, 4 children in 5 years. We didn't know what was causing that, but after we found out what was causing it, we stopped having children because we couldn't afford anymore.
Okay.
So I went in and applied for my sister's job. And the superintendent said, if I lose one Jennison, which was my last name, I'll be all right if I get another one. So he hired me, not because he was sure I could teach, but because I was my sister's sister. So I started teaching in Riceville, Iowa.
Okay.
And I did just fine until Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. Martin Luther King Jr. had been one of our heroes of the month in February, along with Abraham Lincoln, who refused to free the slaves until he absolutely had to. George Washington, who owned slaves, bought and sold people for money. Davy Crockett, who was famous for killing Native Americans and killing Mexicans as we tried to take over part of their land, and he died there, I believe.
Wow.
Those were heroes of the month in February. That was racist teaching, and I didn't even know it.
Wow.
On February 4th, the next day we were to learn the Sioux Indian prayer that says, "Oh, Great Spirit, keep me from ever judging a man until I've walked a mile in his moccasins." And we were going to learn that because we were studying the Indian unit. Now, those Indians weren't Indians, but because, Columbus was lost and didn't know where he was, he thought he had reached India. So we call them Indians. To this day,
Really?
natives of this country are called Indians, and they aren't Indians. Every one of those Indian, so-called Indian groups, First Nations group, had a word in their language for the people. They considered themselves the people. We white folks didn't consider them people. We considered them less than people. And we must have, because we took over their land, we slaughtered them, we killed their children, we raped their wives. And then we put them in concentration camps. Only we don't call them concentration camps. We call them reservations. So I'm teaching the Indian unit. I'm taking the teepee home on April 4th. I was going to wash it, dry it, iron it out, take it in the next morning to decorate the teepee for my kids to stand in. I walked in the front door, the telephone was ringing. I answered the telephone, it was my sister. She said, "Is your television on?" I said, "No." She said, "You better turn it on." I said, "Why?" She said, "They shot him." And I said, "Who'd we shoot this time?" Because we're in a shooting mode. We'd already killed JFK, and we're shooting those that we disagree with. And then she said, "Martin Luther King Jr."
Wow.
And for just an instant, I'm sorry, but I can't think about this without getting sick to my stomach.
Okay.
For just an instant, my world stopped turning. Martin Luther King Jr. had been one of my heroes in my generation. And he was dead because he told us that it was wrong to treat people unfairly on the basis of a physical characteristic over which they had absolutely no control, which was the color of their skin.
Wow.
Fed the kids, I washed and dried the teepee, I spread it out on the living room floor, I turned on the television, and while I was ironing that teepee, I watched Walter Cronkite came on, the 3 leaders of the black community. And he said to those 3 men, when our leader was killed, his widow held us together. Who's going to keep your people in line? I was absolutely furious. Wow. How dare he ask that question? Up until that moment, I thought that God looked like Walter Cronkite because Walter Cronkite seemed to know everything. And at that moment, I stopped seeing Walter Cronkite as an idol. So I changed the channel, but thinking there must be something better than this. And there was Dan Rather saying to 3 black males, "Don't you Negroes think you should feel sympathy for us white people because we can't feel the anger at this killing that you Negroes can?" I was absolutely infuriated. I wadded that toupee up. I threw it into the closet. I closed the door on it, and I got my husband's ready for when he came home from work. He worked at night shift at Oliver at that time. And I decided at that moment that the next day, not only were we going to learn the Sioux Indian prayer that says, "Oh, great spirit, keep me from ever judging a man until I've walked a mile in his moccasins," I decided that the next day I was going to give my 3rd graders, all white, all Christian 3rd graders, the opportunity to walk in the shoes of a child of color for a day.
Wow.
Now, I didn't know how this exercise would work, but I decided that I was going to split my students on the basis of the color of their eyes, which is caused by the same chemical that skin color is caused by. If you have brown eyes, you have a lot of melanin in your eyes. If you have blue eyes like I have, you don't have much melanin, and you probably don't have much melanin in your skin. I decided at that moment that I was going to split my students according to the color of the eyes the next day and discriminate against those who had the wrong color eyes. Now, if I had been a black woman, I'd have known better than to do this. But you see, I'm white, and I don't have to know what black women go through. And I don't have to listen to me when they tell me, because I have been taught that if you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, hang around, and if you're black, get back. And I knew in my mind, I knew that that is the way you are. That's the way you are conditioned to live in the United States of America. My husband came home, and he walked in, and he said, "They shot him, didn't they?" And I was crying, and I fell into his arms, and he said, "What are you going to do?" And I told him what I was going to do. He said, "Jane, you'll lose your job." I said, if I lose my job because I teach my students the truth, I don't want to teach in Riceville, Iowa. He said, "Well, you're going to lose your job." So he ate his supper. He went to bed. I went to bed crying because he didn't understand. And I knew that nobody else would understand. If he didn't understand, who would? I got up the next morning. I got ready for school. As I was walking out the door, he said, "You aren't going to do that, are you?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "You're going to regret it." I said, "Well, I'll see you later." And I closed the door, and I walked to school crying because he didn't understand what I was talking about.
He didn't get it.
He's a white male. He didn't have to understand. He didn't have to know, but he knew that what happened to us in Waterloo was wrong. But that was only a little wrong compared to what happened to Martin Luther King Jr. So I went to school. The first student came into my room and said, Stephen Armstrong came in and said, "They shot that king last night." And said, "Why'd they shoot that king?" I said, "We're going to talk about that, Stephen." So after we had done the things you have to do first thing in the morning, first we said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag with the words "under God" in it. They don't belong there. And they weren't there until Dwight Eisenhower was president of the United States. That's when we put the words "under God" into the pledge.
Did not know that. Wow.
You didn't know that? Well, then you've learned something today. Thank you very much. We can quit now, all right? Anyway, so we said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag with the words under God in it. Then we sang "God Bless America," which is a prayer. But it's a good song to sing. But it's a prayer. You shouldn't do it in the schools. We did it every day. The kids loved it. They sang it with gusto. And then we started to talk about what had happened the night before. And those kids said all the ugly things that I have ever heard grown-ups say about blacks. They used the N-word repeatedly. They said they don't learn anything. They're lazy. They don't work. All the ugly things that I had never taught them as far as I was concerned. But they had learned all these ugly things from someone, somewhere. And I finally said, "Look, do you kids have any idea how it would feel to be something other than white in the United States of America?" No. "Would you like to do something today that will help you?" Yeah. It was like, "We've already gotten out of spelling and handwriting. Keep this broad talking. We don't have to learn anything all day long." Kids do that. Kids do that all the time. I said, "All right, today, I think we're going to judge people by the color of their eyes. And since I'm blue-eyed and most of the students in this room are blue-eyed, brown-eyed people are going to be on top the first day." And they all said, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" I said, "Blue-eyed people aren't as smart as brown-eyed people. They aren't as clean as brown-eyed people. They aren't as civilized as brown-eyed people." And little brown-eyed Debbie, sitting in the front row, looked up at me and said to me, "How come you're the teacher if you got them blue eyes?" I had never been on the receiving end of racism before in my life. And that child gave me such a shot, and she knew that she was free to say it because I had set it up for her to be superior and me to be inferior. And she let me know immediately. And she did that for the rest of the day. I have never forgotten how it felt to be on the receiving end of racism from a 9-year-old girl who didn't have to be pleasant and sweet and agreeable to me because I was no longer regarded her superior. Now I was just another bluey. And that's what they called one another that day. Brown-eyed kids called blue-eyed kids bluey.
Really? Wow.
It was ugly. I watched things happen that day that I would never have believed would happen. And I've taken all the child psychology courses. I was qualified to teach those children. Right. I thought I knew all about expectations. But in my class that year, I had 4 dyslexic boys, which means they didn't see words the way they're written, and they didn't hear words the way they're said. On that day, those 4 dyslexic boys who couldn't read or spell well the day before, read words I knew they couldn't read and spelled words I knew they couldn't spell. And the only thing that had changed was I told them they were superior because they had the right color eyes. At the end of the day, in Iowa for one day. At the end of the day, Billy Thompson came up to my desk and said, "Where's my spelling paper, Miss Elliot?" I said, "What do you want it for, Billy?" He said, "I want to take it home and show it to my mother. She thinks I can't spell, and I can." He didn't find out until April 5th of his 3rd grade year that he could spell, because up until that point, he had been living down to teachers' expectations of him. And on the day he found out he had the right color eyes, he achieved beyond anything he had ever been expected to achieve. It was absolutely unbelievable. On the other hand, I had in my classroom that year, the Lutheran minister's daughter, Carol, the Lutheran minister's daughter. She came into my room in February reading at the 6th grade level. She had never multiplied. We had been multiplying for a couple of months. I taught her how to multiply the first 15 minutes of math class that day. She never made a mistake again in math until the day she had the wrong color eyes. And on that day, that tall, blonde, blue-eyed, beautiful example of the so-called perfect American girl made mistakes in reading, she made mistakes in spelling, and she forgot how to multiply.
What?
I'm not making this up. Believe me, this is exactly what happened.
I believe you,
Yeah, she came in from recess crying. I said, "What's going on here?" As she walked across the playground, 2 brown-eyed Debbies and a brown-eyed Cindy stepped up behind her. One of them reached up, struck her across the back with her forearm, and when Carol turned around, Debbie said to her, "You have to apologize to me for getting in my way because I'm better than you are." And Carol apologized and came into the room crying. I have never seen that kind of behavior in my 3rd graders or the junior high people that I taught later. You need to realize that what's happening in Minneapolis and all the major cities in the United States today is happening not because of skin color. It's happening because of ignorance about skin color and its effect. The folks who are doing this aren't stupid. You can't fix stupid, but you can fix ignorant, and you do it with education, not indoctrination, which is what we provide in this country. We teach people how to be good American citizens. At the same time that we're saying only those of us in these 48 contiguous states and Alaska and Hawaii and the islands are Americans. We forget that everybody who lives in a country in this part of the world, this western part of the world, from the northern tip of Canada to the southern tip of South America, every one of those is an American. The United States of America is exactly that. The 48 United States. This isn't the whole of America. So
exactly. Wow.
When we build a wall across the southern border, and our president says we're going to build a wall across the southern border of America, does he mean on the South Pole? That's the southern border of America. No, he means the southern border of the United States of America. And so we now have imprisoned in camps, in concentration camps, in effect, a whole bunch of little brown-skinned children that Mr. What's his name wants to be sure they do not come into this country because, as he said right after he was elected, we've got to keep these brown-skinned people out of this country because brown-skinned people reproduce too rapidly. He is fully aware that within 30 years, white people will have become a numerical minority in the United States of America. So he's going to try to keep those brown-skinned people out. And he's also has closed most of the Planned Parenthood clinics because he's quite certain that Planned Parenthood clinics are for the purpose of providing abortions. And he knows
Wow.
that in 1987, 60% of the fetuses that were aborted in this country were white. Last year, 2 years ago, only 39% of the fetuses that were aborted in this country were white. So you see, we're making progress, increasing the number of white babies and decreasing the number of brown-skinned babies who come to this country. If you think that we aren't living in a racist situation, and if you think that we weren't living in a racist situation before the killing of that black man in Minneapolis, you need to take another look. You need to realize what's really going on in this country. This is the land of the free and the home of the brave. I am one of the free, and black women are the brave.
Right. Wow. You got to say that again. You're the free. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. When Colin Kaepernick refused to stand for the Star Spangled Banner, oh, say, does that Star Spangled Banner yet wave? Or the land of the free, and that means the white people in the stands who could afford the tickets, and the home of the brave, and that's the black males who are on the free on the field, willing to allow people to beat them nearly to death, so that they can make enough money while they're young to keep them in food and the necessities of life when they're old. We're living in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And the next time you sing that Star Spangled Banner, you'd better remember that. That's what that Star Spangled Banner is all about. And you need to read the rest of the verses of that song and realize that you're singing a racist anthem.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing you learn if you're in my classroom.
My goodness. Well, I want to, because I started watching you years ago, and I saw that you went on to do it for several years. You would travel around the country and do these, and I would see people actually get mad at you in the classrooms and jump up and walk out and cry. I'm talking, these are teenagers. Some of these are like young adults. And
I do this. I do this with corporations.
Yeah.
CEOs. I've had CEOs of major corporations in this country in the room when I'm doing, and they are usually in the blue-eyed group. Because at that time, when I started this, in 1985, they did a film about my former students and how it felt as you're a young adult to remember what happened to them in third grade. And after that, and because of that, somebody from a major corporation called me and asked me if I would come and do the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise with their corporation employees. And I thought, well, if I can do this for 3 years and make enough money, I can quit teaching altogether. Well,
right, exactly.
I didn't realize that there wasn't much money in what I was doing.
Okay.
And if I wanted to be rehired, I had to change my behavior. So I resigned from a position as a third grade teacher and went out to deal with old children. And make no mistake about this. The people that I run through the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise who are in corporations or in the military or in local groups act exactly like my third graders did.
Wow. So they're programmed to think a certain way then. That's wow.
Yeah, these are people from the ages of 22 to 70.
Wow.
You need to realize that we have thoroughly conditioned every student in the United States of America to the myth of race. Wow. And you need to realize that if you are, and people say to me, well, not all white people are racist. Number one, if you aren't a racist, you won't use the word white to describe yourself.
Right, exactly.
Because you aren't white. My shirt is white. My skin is not. There is no such thing as a white person if you've been out in the sun at all. So get over that.
Right, okay.
And when you say, I'm not a racist, I didn't learn racism in school, well, then you should go back and take the whole thing over again because you didn't learn what you were supposed to learn. You flunked education. You flunked Education 101 because that's what education is about in the United States of America. It's what it's about in Great Britain. It's what it's about in Russia. It's what it's about in Germany. And if we heard about this kind of thing going on in those countries, we'd say they are brainwashing their children. But we are brainwashing our children. We are teaching them how to be good United States of America citizens. And we ought to stop it and teach them how to be citizens of the world. Because after I'd done this a few times, the black people that I worked with said things like, when are you going to wake up, Jane? And I said, what do you mean? Well, do you really think you're white? And of course I'm not. And then I started reading books that would educate me. If so-called white people want to get over their racism, they cannot ask people of color to stop responding negatively to our treatment of them. They have to start educating themselves. And you can do that Go to my website, jane@janeelliott.com.
Yeah, I have it above here. They can see it. Okay.
Download the printed language learning materials that are there. The first is a set of typical statements that white folks make that think they aren't racist. The second is a set of clarifications of those statements, how they are perceived by those who hear them from you. The third set is a set of commitments to combat racism. I don't know, I think there are 20 or some things on that list that you can do to deal with your own problem. And now somebody is saying, well, racism is a societal problem. No, racism is an individual problem. Societies are made up of individuals. And when individuals give up their racism, we will change this society. And believe me, this society needs to be changed. I have been hit by a white male during this exercise after an hour of being in my presence. Oh yeah, I've been hit. I have been called every name that you can imagine.
What? Oh, I can imagine. Oh my
gosh. The
one
they call me most often is the B word. Well, for me, B, the B word is an acronym for being in total control, honey.
I love it. I love that.
And if you're a woman and you're in total control, some male is going to call you the B word. And at that point, you say, you're out of control, aren't you, darling? But I can take care of that for you. And then you whip out your little Lorena Bobbitt fruit knife.
Exactly.
And you control him very quickly. People, words are the most powerful weapon devised by humankind. We kill people with words all day, every day. When when some liberal white female walks up to a black woman and says, when I see you, I don't see you black. What does she think she's saying? I'll tell you how it is perceived. I perceive that as meaning, I can't relate to someone of your skin color. So I'm just going to pretend that you don't have that problem, and then maybe we can communicate.
Yeah, I see that a lot. Wow, that's what that
Nobody ever says to me, when I see you, I don't see you white. I say that to them. Look, I'm not white. Get over it. My hair's white. My teeth used to be white, but my hair turned white. My teeth turned gray. That's where the difference is getting old. So yeah, there's lots of color in my life, but most of it's fading. You need to realize that when a teacher stands up in front of a group of students and says, I don't care whether you're black, brown, yellow, red, or green with purple polka dots, I'm going to treat you all the same. How many of you listening have heard that? Raise your hand.
I'm going to raise my hand. I've heard it, but I didn't see it.
Right. Now, you need to say to that person, you forgot to put the word white in there, number one.
Right.
I mean, you see white, but you don't see the rest of those colors. And number two, you have to ask that person, how many people do you see who are green with purple polka dots? You must be, when you lump all of us, people of color in, with those who are green with purple polka dots, the next thing you're going to say is, if you don't like it, why don't you go back where you came from? And if you're green with purple polka dots, you must have come from another planet.
Wow.
We are denying the humanness of the people that we see as people of color and not as good as people who look like me are.
Wow.
Give it up.
You're the first person I ever spoke to. I mean, and I have other friends, different backgrounds and respectful. I'm going to say this because some people they don't know what we're talking. They're not really getting it. So I'm going to say to my white family out there, this is the first person that has referred to herself as not being a white person. And she said something powerful a while back. She said there's over 2,700 different skin tones. Can you talk about that for a moment? Worldwide, right? 2,700.
This is in the National Geographic magazine for April of 2018. Have you seen this at all?
I have not seen that, no.
Each of these has a number on the Pantone color wheel.
Okay.
You can go to the color wheel and find out your color by putting your face or your hand up against that color wheel. Wow. And it will give you a number of your skin color. There are 70 people on this, 70 different skin colors. You think that's an important concept?
It is.
This is an important concept. So everybody, go to the National Geographic, go Google National Geographic, get their email address, and send them a request that you can buy that magazine. Take it home. And when you do that, guess what?
Yeah, what is it?
Something? Because you have to
Oh no! I was just laughing because it was so serious what you say. I'm laughing because we've never heard this kind of talk before. You don't hear it on television. They won't tell you this stuff.
In that magazine, there's a picture of the map of the world, and it shows where the first modern human being started in sub-Saharan Africa, and how they left there and moved to populate every landmass on the face of the earth.
Wow.
Every
Now,
landmass on the face of the earth was populated by Black people.
wow.
The only reason they were no longer Black is because as they moved farther and farther from the equator, their bodies were exposed to less and less sunlight, so their bodies produced less and less melanin. So their hair got lighter, their skin got lighter, and their eyes got lighter, but their brains didn't get smaller.
That's amazing.
And you cannot
Wow.
judge a person's intelligence by the size or the shape of their skull. And
All right,
somebody
now.
is coming up with that yet again now. And when you see those articles, you need to write to the magazine in which that article appears and say, don't give us any more of this crap. We know, we know that you don't have the right to treat people unfairly on the basis of your ignorance where skin color is concerned. That has to stop.
Wow. I just want to reiterate what she just said. Guys, if you're listening to this, and again, listen, I know it's going to rub some people the wrong way because some of them have been so indoctrinated to think. I actually heard about this a few years ago that one of the professors got up and started teaching about where everyone came from. Civilization started in Africa, but you said sub-Saharan Africa. They said Africa, and all the I want to say so-called white, because we know they're not white people, but that group of people jumped up and left the room and just walked.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Yeah.
However,
yes,
you understood that, but those same people do not understand what Black people are angry about in every major city in the United States today, because they have had to listen to a lie ever since they were born, and they will have to listen to it until they die.
Wow. Wow.
We start with children prenatally. I worked with a group of midwives not too long ago, and they asked me to work with them, and I said, why do you want me to work with you? I don't know anything about medicine. I was delivered of 4 children in 5 years, but I didn't do the delivery. I was delivered of them by a medical person. They said, that's not the reason we want to talk to you. We want you to talk to us. The reason we want you to talk to us is because we're all midwives. We're all registered nurses. We work in delivery rooms. And we know that Black and brown people don't get the same treatment in delivery rooms that white people do. And she said, brown and Black babies aren't treated as well as white babies are.
Really?
Now, if that doesn't scare you,
That's
I
scary.
don't know what will.
That's scary. Yeah, that's
and
scary.
those people who are delivering those babies and who are working with those mothers who are being delivered of those babies are mostly good religious people.
Good religious people. Right.
Yeah.
Religious. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's scary. So that lets me know if my wife and I we haven't had a baby yet, but if we do, we have the.
When you do, you call a midwife.
Call a midwife. Okay.
A midwife of color.
Yeah.
And you ask her, when you get pregnant, when your wife gets pregnant, you get a hold of a midwife who has worked in delivery rooms and ask her to deliver that child. But go to a doctor for prenatal care. But if she's getting treated less than white women are treated during that prenatal care, you need to change doctors until you find one that isn't a racist.
Oh
and
my
that's
gosh.
Hard to do. Yeah. Yeah. This starts prenatally and it goes on forever. Go on.
No, I was going to say, no, racism. It's in everything that's every established. I mean, the mindset of every established company and business. It's in the mindset of the people that are there, even in hospitals. Huh? Okay.
Absolutely. You can't. If you have graduated, people say to me, "Oh, I'm not a racist," and I say, "Wait a minute. Did you graduate from high school in the United States of America?" Well, yes. Did you graduate from college in this country? Well, yes. Well, if you graduated from high school or college and you aren't a racist, you should go back and take the course over, because you didn't learn what it was designed to teach you, which was the rightness of whiteness. And if you don't believe that, then you get a picture in your mind of the Mercator projection map, the map of the world that we all see. Get a picture in your mind of that. And you see Greenland hanging down there in the middle of that map like a great big ripe plum.
Yeah.
You see that? Okay, now let me show you a new map, a different way of seeing the world. This is the Peters projection map.
Okay.
You see this map? You see where Greenland is on this map? See this little tiny thing up here in the middle? That's the true size. That's the true size of Greenland. Now, at the bottom of the Mercator map, there's a legend. And on it, not on this map, but on the Mercator map, there's a legend that says, South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland. And on this map, South America is indeed 9 times larger than Greenland, because this map tells the truth. on the Mercator map, what's the equator? You know what the equator is?
Supposedly in the center of the earth, right? Supposedly, right?
An imaginary line around the outer center of the earth,
right. Okay.
halfway between the North Pole and the South Pole. On the
Mhm.
Mercator map, the equator is 2/3 of the way down the map. It does not divide the world into two equal parts. It divides it in 2/3 of the map are taken up by countries who are Christian. And the reason that happened is because the Pope commissioned Mercator to make a map that showed the spread of Christianity.
Oh my gosh.
So 2/3 of
Wow.
the map is taken up by the white countries of the world, and 1/3 of the map is given to the countries in which there are people of color. And in fact, South America is 9 times larger than Greenland.
Oh my gosh.
When people say to me, I didn't learn racism in school, they mean they weren't listening.
They weren't listening. Yeah, right. And they're just
If
saying
they
they
were
don't know.
listening,
Yeah.
if they were listening, they learned the lie. And if they wanted to pass the course, they had to regurgitate the lie that the teacher prepared them with. That's what education is. You know, we could do better, but you can't do better. And if you think if you think it has nothing to do with racism, you need to read this book. See this book? What's the name of this book?
Let's see. Hold it down a little bit. I'm sorry.
The Color of Law.
Oh, I see it. The Color of Law. Yes, I see it.
The Color of Law. And in this book, it tells you about many of the laws that we have made, particularly the laws that segregate people. And you need to understand that what we call de facto segregation, meaning that people just wanted to be the people who are like themselves. That's the reason we have de facto segregation. In fact, we have segregation, de jure segregation, which was put in place by people who didn't know that there's only one race on the face of the earth. They are absolutely convinced that there's more than one race on the face of the earth, and that one race is better than all the others. And if you don't read the rest of this book, at least read pages 216 and 217.
Pages 216 and 217. I'm going to write that down. Okay.
217 in the Color of Law.
Okay.
And it says, in my opinion, 20th century federal, state, and local officials did not resist majority opinion with regard to race. Instead, they endorsed and reinforced it actively and aggressively.
Wow.
If the government had told developers that they could have FHA guarantees only if the homes they built were open to all, integrated working class suburbs would likely have matured with both African Americans and whites sharing the benefits. But the people who wrote those laws, those federal laws, were racist. They wouldn't call themselves racist, but they believed in the myth of 3 or 4 races. There is only one race of people on the face of the earth, and that is the human race.
Right. My gosh.
There is no race other than the human race on the face of the earth. Human beings come in different sizes and shapes and colors and genders and gender orientations and ages and religions and ethnicities, but they are all members of the same race. We've got to nail that down. And while you're talking to me, you're going to hear that as often as I can wedge it in.
It's powerful.
Because I have heard, this morning, somebody said, one of the MSNBC newspapers said, well, when you have this many racial groups, and I thought, oh, deliver me, Lord. We don't have them. Oh, please,
my gosh.
Please. It is painful.
That's crazy.
And if I'm this upset by this, what must young Black mothers think when they, and this is really making me angry.
Okay.
We see the picture of that Black man lying face down on the concrete with that white skinhead with his knee on that man's neck and 3 other cops holding him down. We see that over and over and over on our television set in our living room. And they justify showing it by saying, first they say, this is a very, this picture will cause you some discomfort. If you don't want to see it, turn it off for a while, just turn your back. No, they should say, if you want to see this ugliness, go to your website or Google this.
Right, but don't put it on national television. Exactly.
Do not put it on in people's living rooms because little Black boys are already scared enough. And so are their mothers. And I want that stopped. There is no excuse for showing that over and over and over again. They will not show a woman giving birth.
Right. They won't do that. They won't show that.
No, they won't
That's
do
right.
that. That's obscene. We can't have that on television.
Right.
But
Exactly.
we can have a murder in front of our eyes, 9 minutes of it. We show 9 minutes
Terrible.
of that murder. And why do we do that? Do we do that to get sympathy? No, we do that to teach young black males what can happen to them if they get out of line, or even if they don't get out of line. If some cop just thinks they're out of line, or if some white woman has let her dog run loose in a park where the signs say, keep your dogs on a leash, and some black male comes up to her and says, will you please put your dog on the leash? And she calls the police and tells them that a black man is attacking her.
I saw that. It's crazy.
And accosts the black man. She lies, and she got away with it. But she didn't get away with it because the black man was allowed to explain what was happening. And then they told her that they weren't going to take him in, and she needed to change her behaviors. For the love of God, what gave her the idea that she had the freedom to decide that that man deserved to be incarcerated, because her freedom to run that dog against the rule was made her, because she was white, she had the freedom to break the rule.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's not amazing. It's America.
It's America. Yeah, I get it. You're right. My gosh. I just had to take a moment of silence because my mother always she thinks about me all the time. She prays for me all the time as a black man, or a brown skinned man, right? Or a mahogany man, right? She just prays for me all the time. She said, Jimmy, just do the right thing. Don't provoke the cops when they stop. Keep your hands where they can see them. Don't reach for anything. But even with that, black men of color are still dying innocently, and so it's a painful thing to talk about. But I'm glad I have you on here, because I'm going to be honest, when we talk about it, when Dr. King talked about it, and Malcolm X talked, Medgar Evers, and all these guys talked about it,
we killed him for it.
Absolutely.
Therein lies the rub. When I talk about it, I'm allowed to talk about it because I'm old, I'm white, I'm female. And when I go on a college campus, without a doubt, every time, there are always those 3 little fraternity boys down the 2nd or 3rd row with those red caps on that say, make America great again. That cap really means make America hate again. Make no mistake about that. And
I believe it.
Yeah, then they're talking and they're pointing at me, and I stop what I'm saying. I say, look, fellas, I know what you're talking about. You want me dead because of what I do to attempt to decrease the level of racism in this country. Let me tell you something. You can kill me, but if you do, people might decide that you have made a martyr out of me for killing me for something I'm doing that is right and could be better for all of us. And if you make a martyr out of me, you might have to spend the rest of your life celebrating Jane Elliott Day once a year. Now, do you want to do that? And then they all do this. No, I say, fine, then keep your mouth shut and listen while I'm talking. And then they shut up and listen. But first you have to get their attention. It's like training mules. You're going to train mules. You have to hit them between the ears with a board and get their attention. And that's what you have to do with these racist little pale-faced boys. We have
I'm going to ask you a question. Wow.
Yeah, we have to get their attention in ways that they won't forget. And they're embarrassed. In one group, it was 1,500 people. And they were embarrassed. And I guess they shut their mouths in a hurry.
They did, I bet.
When I worked with the people in a maximum security prison not too many years ago, they brought a bunch of them into this room for me to talk to, which was totally ridiculous. And the blacks came in like this, and the whites came in like this, until I started to talk. And then the whites were like this, and they started to say nasty things.
Really?
And the black men in the 2nd row turned around and gave them that look.
Like, y'all better be quiet.
Shut their mouths, folded their arms, slid down in their chairs so that you could scarcely see them, and they kept their mouths shut for the rest of the day. Because those blacks let them know, if you can't control yourselves, we'll control you. Now, what are you going to do? And then they controlled themselves. What we're learning right now in major cities in the United States is when white people, so-called white people, start controlling themselves, then people of color won't have to protest what's happening to them.
Wow. Yeah, Dr. King said something powerful. He said rioting is the language of the unheard. And that's powerful what you just said.
But wait a minute. The language. Wait a minute. I'm never going to get a chance to talk to you, so I'm going to get everything I can get said in this line.
Yes.
The language that we are using today is the language of the 15th and 16th and 17th century. Now, if you're going to use the language and the philosophy and the laws of those three centuries in the 21st
Yes.
century, then you must also use that means of travel, give up airplanes, of communication. You'd better learn how to send and receive smoke signals, of health and no health. You better give up all these shots that keep you free from these things like smallpox, diphtheria, scarlet,
absolutely, okay,
polio. Give up all those things and go back to the 15th and 16th century and see how long you live. Live the way people did then, or else get your mind and your words into the 21st century and stop this nonsense. There's only one race on the face of the earth. Give up what you learned when you were 3 years old. Most of you are over 3 years old. Start acting. Try to get out of your child or adult or
that's crazy
parent ego state and get into your adult ego state. You can do it if you try, and it's time to do it now. We are running out of time, folks. We're running out of time in this country.
Wow. And so, and that's again.
By the way,
sure,
the word "wow" upside down becomes "mom."
Oh, good.
All right, Mom. Just remind you of that. Go on.
And I told you, you're one of my moms, and let me tell you why I say that.
Okay, I'll take that.
I do not. And my mom will tell you this. My physical mom will tell you this. Someone who has a vision, because you're a visionary, and you know what? You've been blessed again. You've been blessed to live, and I just thank the Most High for protecting you. And you go forth, and you do not care what people think. I have very few people that I hold in that high regard, no matter what they look like. I call them mom and dad. I mean, I'd be physically. You know, like you said before, maybe we are physically somehow we are distant cousins. But what I'm saying is, I'm not being directly your son, but I'm your son, and I respect you. I respect what you did for Black people or people of color. Okay, because that could have cost you your life. I mean, you know, what's the major word that I hear a lot?
But wait a minute. I'm not doing this for Black people.
You're doing it for all
people. Black people aren't the ignorant ones.
Right. Exactly.
Every Black woman in this country has forgotten more since breakfast than I will ever learn.
Absolutely.
I am not doing this as an ally to Black people. I am doing this so that in 30 years, when white people become a numerical minority, there will be some Black people who have heard and some white people who have learned the lesson that we're all members of the same race, the human race, and we must treat one another equitably. Now, I'm not equal to anybody else on the face of the earth. Every young person is sharper than I am. They know more about technology than I do. Every person of color knows more about racism than I do. I am not your equal, but I am guaranteed equitable treatment under the law. Equal treatment under the law. I want it for me, and I want it for you, and I want it for all time.
Absolutely. I get that. I get all of that. I'm just letting you know that when I say brother and sister, there's a lot of people that I've worked with in business. I don't consider them brothers and sisters because whenever I talk about what's going on with our plight with Black men and women, they don't want to hear that. You know, they want to do business with me, and I understand that. I get all that. But when we raise up, we say something about it. We speak out against it. They're crickets.
We have to,
you know.
This crap. So we hear it. And if you don't know why to, then you have to hear what. What Frederick Douglass said.
Oh, you said this the other day. I want to hear this again. I think that we need to hear this.
If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. Find out what any people will quietly submit to, and you will have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue until they are resisted with either words or blows or with both. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. If you're going to have change in this country, you're going to have to acknowledge the truth about racism and deal with it. And the truth is that it is a lie.
It's a lie.
Made up during the Spanish Inquisition to give some people power because of a physical characteristic over which they have no control, and to take power away from others. It needs to be stopped. Stop living in the 16th century, people. Come into the 21st century with me. You'll find yourselves, you won't have as many of this upheaval. If white people, those so-called white people, if pale faces quit acting like damn fools.
Right, exactly. And you know, and I title this thing, "Wake Up America." It's time to acknowledge the truth about racism, because everybody keeps saying, "Well, we're post-racism," you know, because we got Barack Obama elected and all that. I'm saying to myself, they're setting themselves up. It's going to get worse. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Be honest with me. In 1968, from that time till now, have we really made progress?
We were making progress when Barack Obama was elected.
Okay. All right.
But what happened then was the neo-Nazis, the white separatists, the damn fools in this country who believe in the myth of the rightness of whiteness, just went underground. They just waited, and the Barack Obama fueled their anger every time he opened his mouth and did something positive. That gave them another excuse for hating that black man, because they are ignorant. People who are racist are ignorant, and they refuse to learn another lesson other than the one that they have already learned. You need to realize that this election of this boy grown tall in the president's residence is a reaction to having 8 years of a brilliant, black, positive human being in the president's residence.
Wow, eloquently spoken. And so basically what you're saying is the exact opposite happened when he got in office. We had 8 years, and all of a sudden it started going backwards out of pure jealousy and hate and ignorance for that man. So they went and elected someone who wasn't really, wasn't qualified for office.
They had Mitch McConnell as their noble leader. Yeah, Mitch McConnell, who doesn't know his derriere from a depression in the dirt, but he is their noble leader. People, think about this. He is blatantly racist, sexist, ageist, homophobic, and ethnocentric, and he is giving advice to the cheater-in-chief in the president's residence. It's time to it's time to fix this, and we can fix this in November.
Yes,
go to the polls in huge numbers. Don't vote for Bernie Sanders. Don't vote for anybody else on that ticket except Joe Biden. Now, he isn't perfect. He's just a whole lot better than what we've got right now.
It's a whole lot better. I'm glad you said that. Which brings me to my next point. I'm going to get critical now because I'm going to get a little spiritual because I know you got things to do. But the funny thing is, there's a lot of Christians, white evangelicals, and now that this guy got shot. I mean, this guy got shot. Our people are getting shot and killed in the streets, and then we had this last episode, and they're silent and they love themselves some Donald Trump. What do you say to that?
I say they should read Frank Schaeffer's books.
Okay.
Read Frank Schaeffer's book, Angry with God. Read everything Frank Schaeffer ever wrote. His father started the evangelical movement in Great Britain. He taught it to his son. His son came here and started it in the United States. Okay. Unfortunately, according to his son, it is used in such a way that you cannot recognize it from what his father started in the UK.
Oh, I bet. Wow.
Oh, yeah. And Frank Schaeffer writes books that really condemn what the evangelicals are doing right now. And when you realize that they are supporting a man who is proud of grabbing women in unfortunate places.
Absolutely.
And perhaps that's why he has to wash his hands so often. Because they have been in the wrong place so often. Now, don't tell me that I'm being hypercritical of this man. I'm quoting the things that he has said and done and bragged about it.
It's awful. It's awful.
Frank Schaeffer says somebody who is supporting somebody whom the evangelicals are supporting this country right now, that's questionable because of the way the evangelical movement has been twisted and distorted in this country.
And they don't stand with us. I mean, we're marching, and we see regular so-called white people out there. I mean, when I say regular, they're not really religious. A lot of them don't go to church, but they're out there with us.
You can't,
Am I right?
Wait a minute. You can't say they aren't religious. They're religious. They interpret religion in a way different from the way I do. No doubt about it. They interpret the words of Jesus Christ and all those fantastic people who wrote that marvelous book. They interpret those words in ways that are good for them. But they aren't good for the rest of humanity. And they aren't even good for the evangelicals because they give them a really bad reputation.
Wow. Thank you for the correction. Wow. It's so much to learn, man. I tell you. You've given us a lot of your time, Jane. I'm just going to ask you a few more questions. I know you've got other things to do, but the main thing I want to get out right now is where do we go from here? Because, this thing that happened on national television, now they're saying they're trying to cover. Let me just say this. They're trying to say, oh, maybe he had fentanyl in his system, or maybe something was wrong with the guy. They go back into his history, and every time they justify the killing. What's going to actually bring change? Is the writing going to do that, you think? Or is it, how do we get to the next level is my question, because you're right. You're running out of time.
Number one, you read, well, you start by reading. You get this book. If you have children, if you have grandchildren, if you have great-grandchildren, you get this book, The Color of Man. And you take your children, grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and yourself through this book. And it will tell you how racism started and how ignorant it is, and the fact that we're all members of the same race. We're just come in different sizes and shapes and colors and so on and so on. Then you get Robert Wald Sussman's book, The Myth of Race. It's an absolutely remarkable, well-researched discussion of how the idea of race started. The only problem I have with that book is it's called The Myth of Race. What we are doing isn't because of a myth. A myth is something you make up to explain some natural phenomenon that you don't understand. So we make up a myth, like the Greeks said that the sun was a god that went across the sky in a golden chariot every morning. It was a myth. But the idea of race is a lie. And a lie is something we make up to justify our undesirable behaviors. So you read Robert Wald Sussman's book, The Myth of Race. You read every word of it. And you take pieces out of that book, and you write them on little pieces of paper and stick them in places all over your house. Put one over the stool in your bathroom. Put one over the kitchen, over the stove in your kitchen. Don't put it too close to the flame. Put several of them on your refrigerator. There are statements in that book and in this book that if you have to see them every morning and get reinforced in what you learned, you will remember what you learned. Then get Nathan Rutstein's book. I can't remember the name of it, but the subtitle is Ending Psychological Genocide in the Schools.
Ending Psychological Genocide in the Schools.
And the racial conditioning of our children. The name of it came to me, a voice came to me from out of the sky. My daughter said,
that's good.
Racial conditioning of our children. The name of the
racial conditioning of our children.
Racial conditioning of our children, and the subtitle is Ending Psychological Genocide in the Schools. You read that book, and it will teach you something about what's happening in the schools all over this nation today. Then you also read. Go to my website. Download the bibliography. Read every book about racism and about anti-Semitism and about all of it. But be sure you read the books about racism, because that's the #1 problem in the United States of America. Read those books. People, you have to self-educate yourself, because most of what you learned in school, particularly in social studies, was not the truth.
I couldn't agree more. I'm just like flabbergasted that you had all this information. Like when I talk to you on the phone, you give me so much stuff that you haven't even said. And now you come on here with a whole bunch of other things that I never heard anybody talk about.
They don't.
I wish you could have recorded.
Listen to me. Listen to me. People become my fans because I'm full of air.
You're full of air. I know that's right. I know, right? You are the real deal, and you dedicate your life to it. Yeah. Let me ask you this. Okay, so you're saying we need to self-educate, and I get that. That's powerful. What do you feel about the government? You think the government needs to physically? I mean, because they keep saying the same thing. They'll say we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about race. We're going to talk about bringing, fixing the criminal justice, but nothing gets done. Do you feel like it's going to have to start directly with the Supreme Court and all these people in power? Because they're the ones that's writing the laws, right? That's what. All right.
We're in a big pile of it right now, because so many members of the courts in this land have been appointed by Dinosaurus P. Rump.
Oh my goodness.
He has appointed so many district courts, and there are so many people now on the Supreme Court who are avowed racists, and those are lifetime appointments. If our so-called president has his way, has done what he wants to do, he'll make the presidency a lifetime appointment. You want to be careful. You want to be very careful. That he doesn't apply martial law, and that's what he's on his way to doing. You want to be sure that you elect people during the primaries and during the general election this year. You must be very, very careful to elect people who will not allow him to become a president for life. And that's what he said when he first became president. He said this should be a lifetime position.
Wow. Interesting.
This is the dangerous time we're in. I don't think you realize how close we are right now to losing our democracy.
You said that last night. You said, Jimmy, well, yesterday you told me, I said, listen, let's do this next week. You said to me, well, we got to strike while the iron's hot, because we don't know. I might not be able to talk to you in a week. Something could happen. And you're right. With all this stuff going on, they can change things, right?
At my age, I could fall over dead.
Yeah, but
now. All my older brothers and sisters are gone. So I have to get this stuff said now while I can.
Yeah.
I get threatened with death. I get threatened with death so often that some fool could drive by here and take a pot shot at me anytime. And that's one of the things I know could happen. It's one of the things I have been warned about. And it's one of the reasons why there are always security people when I give a speech anywhere.
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to pray, Father, please let her stay here with us a bit longer. Give her 100 years, please. I'm not sure if you want to live that long, but
she hasn't suffered enough yet, God. Hold on.
We still need her. Please divinely protect her, Father. Please. But and the thing is, you're right. You suffered a long time, but there's so many of us that still need a voice like yours. Okay, and I thank you for your time.
See, I'm a white person, and I can say these things.
Yes.
If I were a black woman and had been a black woman and I did that exercise in a third grade classroom 52 years ago, I wouldn't have lived through the weekend.
Oh, wow. You guys hear that? Wow. Let me ask you something. That next day, did you after King died, when you said you came back to school, I'm pretty sure the place was probably, there was people, the races were probably happy, but some of the people, the nation.
Tickles to death. I thought it was about time to stop that son of a bitch. Yeah. Please.
Are you serious? Really?
No, didn't I tell you that's what the teachers said when I went to the teacher's lounge at noon and told them what was going on in my classroom? The younger of the other 2 third-grade teachers said, I don't know how you have time for all that extra stuff. It's all I can do to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. Well, she hadn't taught reading, writing, arithmetic as far as I was concerned. She should have done the extra stuff. And the other one said, and she was over 60 years old at the time, had been molding young minds for over 30 years in the classrooms in Northeast Iowa. And she said, in response to my talking about what happened with the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise, she said, I thought it was about time somebody shot that son of a bitch.
Oh, my goodness.
And every one of those teachers either smiled or laughed and nodded because she had expressed their feelings perfectly. And as the most senior member of the group, she had the most right to do so.
And so she said all that, and basically, that's how they thought and they felt. And those kind of people who are older, they kind of look up to people like that. So she's a racist, and she's just in part that's so this.
And you can't possibly teach against racism if you're a racist, because you cannot do it. Teach what you don't know.
Wow. That's all I can say.
And you can't preach about what you don't know. I will never forget the young black male who rode in the back seat while another black male drove me to the airport in someplace a long time ago, not a long time ago, 5 or 6 years. And on the way, he said, well, Mrs. Elliot, I know I have to cry about this. I said, why do you have to cry about this? He says, I know I have to suffer. Why do you have to suffer? Who told you have to suffer? Well, it says in the Bible, suffer the little children to come unto me. I said, who told you that that's what that means? She said, he said, well, our preacher did. I said, that means permit or allow the little children to come unto me. It doesn't mean you have to suffer because you're a child of color. And he started to cry. And he said, nobody ever told me that. I'm so glad you told me that. Do you realize what we do with Christianity when we allow that kind of ignorance to be told to children in Sunday school?
Oh my gosh.
Suffer the little, you have to suffer because it says so in the Bible. No, it doesn't. It says permit or allow the little children to come unto me, for as such is the kingdom of God.
And he actually believed that, and it was, and you know, when you get that kind of teaching when you're little, it goes into your subconscious mind, becomes a part of you. And I do think even today, I'm going to call these pastors and preachers out. A lot of them, they're teaching this supremacy even in ministry. Would you agree to that? Still in some churches today, right?
Well, but they have been taught to protect their parishioners. And the way to protect parishioners, particularly black ones, is teach them to maintain a low profile. Don't make waves. But then you listen to what Frederick Douglass said, and you know that if you're going to make a change, you had better make some waves.
Amazing. Mother Elliot, I wish I could stay with you much longer. I can talk to you all day long. There's so much, my heart is hurting so bad, and I said, I've got to get someone on here that don't look like me to come on here because whenever I talk, Jimmy, you're arguing, you're an angry black man, you're this and that. No, I'm not. Well, I'm angry, but I have a right to be angry.
If you aren't angry as a black man, what are you?
Right. And I said, you know, yes, I'm angry, but I'm intelligent, and I know something is wrong about this system. I'm looking at the Bible, and I'm looking at how they're preaching it. I can tell that they're lying, that they're preaching, but it's wrong. And I look at the school system. They're teaching, but it's wrong. It's making it worse. And what we saw the other day, the looting, what they don't show is, okay, well, how many black men and women and other people, other races have not been caught on camera that's been killed? We just saw one man. That might have happened 100 times this year. We don't know that, do we?
But you have to remember that our president, so-called cheater in chief, first comes the looting and then comes the shooting.
I saw that. That's crazy.
He's got it backward. First
crazy.
has come the shooting. We took over this country by shooting. We intimidate people by shooting people right next to them. And now we put them on the ground and kneel on their throats. And that intimidates anybody who is watching it. First comes the killing. And then comes the spilling of blood. First comes the killing. And the killing done by people who are teaching us how to behave, to serve and protect the people in the community. We'll serve them on a platter.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not pleasant about these things because I don't see anything pleasant about racism.
Right.
And if you can tell me that people aren't affected by things like that picture on television, then we should turn off our televisions. Yeah.
My mother told me, she said, Jimmy, you know, I'm just praying for you all the time. And my sister said the same thing. And I said, yeah. I said, you know what? Let's keep pushing.
Let's
Dr.
remember
King and those guys. Yeah.
In this country right now, every person from birth to death is screen addicted.
It's screen addicted. Absolutely.
We put them up. We give them a cell phone. We put them in front of a television, and there they are allowed to stay for hours and hours and hours. We have become screen addicted, and you need to realize that the result of being screen addicted is you learn what you see on that, and you will act according to what you see on that boob tube. Marshall McLuhan warned us about this in the 50s. He said, turn off television. It will ruin your minds. And that's what's happened.
Because it's programming, literally. Am I right? It's real programming, really.
Right. He said he called it the mind. And that's what it is.
The Bluetooth. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. I appreciate you coming on. Guys, if you want to reach out to Jane Elliott directly, her website is janeelliott.com, as I have it up here above. And I encourage you to watch this because it's recorded. Watch it over and over again. Yes, go ahead. You're going to say something?
One more thing. One more thing. Don't bother to send me any hate mail unless it's proper spelling, proper grammar, proper punctuation, and is signed with your name. Because I don't read it anymore. I delete it the minute I see that it's badly spelled, badly punctuated, the grammar is bad, and you're using filthy words. I don't have to subject myself to your ignorance. So don't bother to send me any hate mail.
All right, you guys heard that? Man, I love you for your boldness. Again, Father, give her 100 years. So wherever she's at now, give her extra years, because we need you. We need you. We need your wisdom, okay? And we need your understanding, and we need that anchor, because there is a righteous indignation, I believe, in the earth realm. I believe all of us have to be righteously upset about what's going on. And you're right. If we're not, then there's something wrong with us. There's something wrong with us.
That's right.
I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to show this to my mom and some of my other family members. They're going to be like, how did you get her? I don't know how I got you. I just got blessed. Seriously, it's just really hard to get people who do what you do and have given so much to the community. And again, guys, she's been doing this since the day after Dr. King passed away.
52 years ago, and we're still doing it. 52 years, and we're still doing it. Okay,
it doesn't seem real.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Have a blessed day, okay? Have a good day. Bye-bye, Jane.